Hi, this is Moby. Welcome to the Fire Show. Hello, welcome to today. Today I'm sitting down with my friend Saaket, right after a fantastic panel he did at Global Roundup by 3-Day Startup, which happens to be my favorite nonprofit in the world. Today, Saaket and I are having a quick chat about failure, what happens to us when the F word comes in our lives, and how to deal with it. I could go on and on about Saaket in this introduction, but I'll cut it short. He's a kick-ass strategy consultant and is my source when it comes to personal development, meditation, self-awareness, as you'll see in this episode. You can connect with him on Twitter at Saaket DUBey. That's SAAKET DUBey, or on LinkedIn under the same name. Also, if you enjoy this episode, please leave a review on iTunes so I can tell my parents I finally made some friends. Enjoy. Sup, Saaket?
How's it going, Mo?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good, man.
How was your panel today? What was it about?
So Cam and I had a chat about failure. Honestly, there's when you go to a conference or when you are trying to become an entrepreneur, it's very easy to start talking about the successes and the millions of dollars and the investment, but everybody kind of sweeps under the rug the companies that didn't make it, that that kind of, we screwed everything up and closed shop, right? Yeah. So we were kind of discussing less about particulars of companies and more about, okay, well, failure's a thing. What happens when what happens around you? What happens internally? What happens externally? What are the issues surrounding that?
What happens with that song, Everything is Awesome, ends?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking about when we were talking.
Absolutely.
and you mentioned this, and I thought of people I know, and sometimes even me, where people are asking, hey, how's the show? Killing it. We're not always killing it. I'm not always happy. That's life.
That's we get into this trap of the salesman, right?
Yep.
Where we're trying to always build up the brand, build up the company, and in a lot of ways, like I mentioned this too, it's entrepreneurs are different than a job in that you tend to get very emotionally involved, right? This is a part of you. This is not even your baby. This is a part of you, and so you always want to make sure it looks good when somebody asks you about it. Unfortunately, everything doesn't always go well, right? So it's a question of, okay, well, is this just a face that I'm putting on, and are there severe problems underneath that I should be dealing with instead? Or is this just context and situation kind of thing, right?
And you're bound to screw up. You're bound to fail at many things.
Well, you better, or you won't learn.
True. Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you're not trying something new, and that's the kicker. It's you can do something perfectly every time if you know exactly what you're doing, you've done it before, and you know this, if you know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, you can solve a Rubik's Cube every time. But if you're trying to do something new, guess what? You're going to fail, and you're going to stumble, and you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. So we kind of had a discussion about, okay, what does failure look like? What's the difference between a cheap failure and a failure with a big F? And emotionally, how do you handle that? How do you handle that with your employees, with your family, with your clients? So we kind of just touched base on a lot of those issues.
How should someone emotionally handle something like a big public, let's call it a fuck up?
Okay, calling it a fuck up's fine. Well, there's no one way, right? The point is, do you let it destroy you, or do you move on from it, right? And then how do you move on? Do you have a network around you that you can depend on, or are you doing it alone? Are you trying to survive, the English Channel by swimming it? There's no good,
There's no right answer.
Yeah,
right?
there's no right answer to a failure and how you do it. But when it happens, I would say, number one, you own up to it, right? Putting on a face at a certain point is self-destructive, self-defeating. It doesn't do anything if all the evidence is there. And number two, you try to understand the context of what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if you failed in some activity that you devoted a lot of time in, it was new, it was unique, and you put in your effort, that's not something that you should necessarily hold your head in shame, even though you feel like it, right?
Even though you want to run away and hide.
Exactly, right? If you failed because you literally fucked everything up and you didn't do what you knew you needed to be doing, and hey, you know what? Yeah, sure, you can you should feel that shame a bit. You need to feel that, right?
Yeah.
So you can correct your behavior. But things fail. You could have done everything perfectly and still fail. You still have to own it because that's a part of your history now. That's part of who you are. It's part of your story. But it's also, how do you get up from that, right? And what Cam and I talked about were like, you build yourself when you're strong, not when you're weak, right? So you don't have a failure and then all of a sudden start reaching out for a support group or family members or your network or, your resources or your past, because you're at your weakest at that point. What you do is when you're growing, when you're getting started out, when you're excited, you build a group of people around you, a support team, that you check in with regularly. Either Cam liked to call it your personal board of directors. I have something slightly different where I used, which was a mastermind. And it's just kind of people that that you can check in with your issues and problems, that you can depend on an outlook from. And number one, you'll get advice, and sure, that's fine. Everybody's always getting advice. But more importantly, psychologically, you're not alone. Because failure for mammals, for animals, when they're hurt or when they're injured, they don't do it in public. They escape to a hole, right? They hide away. We're people, we're mammals, and we feel the same way. When we're scared or hurt, which is what failure brings on emotionally, we want to recluse. We want to, you don't want to show your face, right? And that is literally the worst thing that you can do if you want to stand up and start walking again, is to just get lost in a hole, right? So if you can create a support network around you when you're strong, of people that you can depend on, when you become weak, when failure happens, you have that around you to help you stand up and walk again, right? You're not trying to build it when nothing's working. So think about it. That's the thing, I think, most than anything else, is we always focus on the success. We always focus, right? It's, hey, look at this company. They did this, and this company built this, and they're making this much revenue
Killing
and this much
it.
profit. Yeah, they're killing it. And every book that we read is about the successful entrepreneur, the Richard Branson, and, what he did, and everything all down the line. And a word that I used in the session was confirmation bias, right? If all we're doing is reading successful people, confirmation bias tells us we need to actually look at all the people who moved in that space that failed. Because for every action Richard Branson took that made him a success, 100 other people took that same action and failed, right? But we don't ever look at that. We just look at the winners. And that gives us a very lopsided perspective on expectations, on accomplishments, on how we achieve things as an individual or as a team or as a group, right?
And you mentioned this in the panel, which was when you're working on something like this, you wall yourself up.
Right.
Can you tell me more about that?
Well, like I said earlier, instinctively as animals, when we're hurt or shamed or feared, we close ourselves off, right? When something is going wrong psychologically, we build fortresses, right? We want to protect ourselves. We need to be stronger, and something's not happening, so we build a wall, either emotionally or with, socially or whatever, because we think the wall is going to protect us. What it ultimately does is it separates us from our resources, from our talents, from our network, from our support, and makes us weaker. So we need to open up little holes in that wall, I guess, right? I didn't use that analogy quite so explicitly, but what we need to do is reach out to those people that we've been depending on for support and advice, and let them offer that support and advice at that period, right? When it's most crucial, when they don't even have to have the answer, right? There's no answer to a failure.
Sometimes it's just company that you need.
Yeah, sometimes it's literally just a different perspective, a different look that doesn't, when you're closed off, you only see one light, right? Everything in your head is dark, and you can't kind of see perspective or the field around you. And simply just having somebody, another perspective, another view on the situation will help you see around that, like through that, right? And it's not going to solve it. Like the failure still happened. It's not like talking to somebody means the failure goes away, the consequences. Yeah. It's still there, but what it does is it opens up our ability to move, right? It gives us a new perspective on a situation so that we can at least start taking another action and, to move forward. So
building that support system before, when you're strong.
Yeah.
That's something I'm learning right now, actually, realizing, who knew self-awareness was strength, right? Anyway, not me 2 years ago.
Company had to deal with like your own internal psychology.
Feelings?
Right?
Oh my God.
I just want to make some money. Right?
Yeah. So building that network, what would you suggest to people who haven't realized the power of that network yet? Should they just hit up people that they've generally talked to about these ideas, ask them for coffee, or chat with them more, or send them email questions whenever they have a problem?
Okay, so there's a lot of different relationships out there, business relationships, work relationships. I would say support is a little bit more narrow versus just networking, right? Or versus a mentor situation would be very good, would be a support kind of situation. But like just calling people up and talking to them for coffee, that's not something that when a failure happens, he's a casual or she's a casual acquaintance, that's not somebody you're going to reach out to, right? So what you're looking for in any sort of relationship that is going to be considered a supportive relationship is regular contact. You're talking, they know what's going on in your life, you know what's going on in their life.
You're actually friends?
Yeah, you're actually friends. You like to hang out. You'll go grab a drink and not talk about work necessarily, right? Like,
wait, people do that?
Austin is very bad for us.
Yeah.
Oh man, but you're trying to create a relationship that will get through rough waters, right? And those aren't the casual ones. So this is kind of a separate thing than networking, than just going out and meeting people. This is more of a, hey, I respect and trust you. Okay, and whatever that means, that could be a mentor, that could be your brother, that could be a friend you've known for 20 years, that could be a guy you worked with 2 companies ago, but you're still friends with and talk and hang out with, right? There's a lot of different things, but what you're looking for is hey, I trust and respect your input. I'm not looking for advice, but I need your perspective. And you maintain that relationship and keep it growing. And you have a handful of those. You're lucky in your life, number one. But that is the type of support around you that you need to get through the big F failures, the big breaks, right? To psychologically remind yourself, I'm not alone. Because the first thing that your brain's going to be telling you is, you fucked up, you're alone, you better go hide, right? And you're not. And with entrepreneurs, there's so many late hours, there's so much focus on a certain thing that things might fall away around you. And it's really easy to get stuck in that I'm alone kind of thing. So consciously going out there and, finding people and making these relationships and maintaining them is a way to, it makes, number one, it makes you stronger. Number two, it makes you more effective, right? You're getting new perspectives in on decisions that you may not have had before. And number three, it's good. It's good for your health. It's good for the health of your family. It's good for the health of your friends, right? To understand, hey, I'm going through a rough time. I can figure this out. Or, hey, you're a good person. I need that input in my life. I would like, let's do something going forward.
Awesome. I will say this on air, so I will be accountable for this. We're going to get that episode between you and me, a solo episode, this year.
Okay.
Thank you, Saaket.
Yes.
Boom, this is fantastic.
Appreciate
Boom.
it, man.